All right, welcome everyone to the January 31st, 2023 Charlotte Zoning Committee Work Session of the City of Charlotte, Charlotte Planning, Design and Development Department. I am Philip Gussman, Chair of the Zoning Committee. This meeting is being streamed online on YouTube in accordance with the meeting statute. Requirements for notice, access, and minutes are being met through electronic means. We ask that everyone keep mics muted when not speaking. Please state your name when making a motion or a second. Explanation of the zoning process. The public hearing on these rezoning cases that we are reviewing today have been held by the City Council and Zoning Committee previously. This meeting is not a continuation of the public hearing, so there will be no public input unless the committee has specific questions. Let's go ahead and step into introductions here around the dais. Let's start with Commissioner Rhodes.
Courtney Rhodes, Zoning Committee.
Will Russell, Zoning Committee.
Douglas Welton, Zoning Committee.
RJ Harvey, Zoning Committee.
Terry Van Zoning Committee.
So we'll do a little mic sharing here, so everyone bear with us. Next, let's see if we can't get staff. Dave, you want to hit it?
Thank you. Dave Penton, Rezoning Manager.
John Kinley, Rezoning Staff.
Michael Russell, zoning staff.
Max Oliver, rezoning staff.
Emma Canarhaus, rezoning staff. Anna Aliati, rezoning staff.
Joe Mangum, rezoning staff.
And who have we got online?
Holly Kramer, rezoning staff.
Jay Carpenter, CDOT.
Patrick Monroe, CDOT Land Development.
Travis Miller, CDOT.
Isaiah Washington, CDOT.
Drew Ritter, CDOT.
Does that look like everyone online? Good deal. All right. Dave, do we have any deferrals?
Yes, let me get through those real quick. None that are in addition to what's already listed on the agenda that I'm aware of. So we've just got the three as listed items 1, 2, and 3, petition 2021-209 coastal acquisition entity, 2021-213 by Goldberg Companies, Inc., 2022-093 by ZCMB1, all requesting a deferral to March 7th of 2023. That's it.
This is Commissioner Wells, and I'll make a motion that we accept those deferrals as stated by Dave.
Harvey, second.
Properly moved by Douglas, properly moved by Walton, seconded by Harvey. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. That passes unanimous. And I guess that means we can step into our first actual petition. That is petition number 4, rezoning petition 2021-261 by Josh Zotsky. Dave, I believe, is playing Holly today.
Take care of Holly's petitions this evening. So 2021-261, it's zoned R17 MF, and the proposed zoning is for I2 conditional. The policy map does recommend innovation mixed use, as well as some neighborhood 2 and commercial in the general vicinity. The proposal is really just conditions on the site rather than a full-on site plan. They're just really restricting some of the more intense uses in the I2 district. So things like abattoir, adult establishments, junkyards, medical waste disposal facilities, petroleum storage, et cetera. All of those have been written out as prohibited uses, and they've also committed to comply with the post-construction stormwater ordinance, tree ordinance, all buffer and screening requirements for that I2 zoning district. We did have one minor change since the hearing. They did commit to adding recreational services to the list of prohibited uses. This is in response to some of the questions that came up by Councilmember Mayfield at the public hearing in regard to, I think it was some of the online gaming that there were some concerns about, and they agreed to take that out. It's apparently classified as recreational services in our ordinance, which is a permitted use. So they did add that to the list of prohibited uses. So we were glad to see that. Staff does recommend approval of the petition. It is inconsistent with the Innovation Mixed Use District. There is some overlap between what's being proposed and remaining in I-2 versus what's in Innovation Mixed Use, but there are some things that don't necessarily line up from a permitted use standpoint. So it was deemed to be inconsistent, but we don't have any significant concerns about a change in place type there to that manufacturing and logistics, given all the prohibition on the I-2 uses. So with that, we'll take any questions you may have.
Questions? Thoughts? And motions?
Dave, just one quick question. And I didn't look at the policy map, but will this translate to be similar to the already developed properties once things go forward? Or if this is because this is going to I-2.
Yep.
So there should be a translation. And I don't know what the remaining parcels on that property are, if they would be the same once the translation occurs.
So a lot of the parcels just to kind of the west of this are I-1 conditional. So this would be I-2 conditional. So it wouldn't translate to M&L manufacturing logistics. It would stay I-2 conditional unless somebody comes in and rezones it again. What will change would be the policy map recommendation. And that would just basically take this area to a darker shade of purple for manufacturing logistics. But I-1 conditional is predominant land use going up Billy Graham Parkway in that other direction.
Thank you.
Dave, a couple of quick questions, just looking at the site. Do we know what the railroad easement is and then what the NCDOT easement is on Billy Graham Parkway?
Not in detail. Don't know like what the specific widths are. Typically, those railroad easements are at least 100 feet from the rail itself. So it looks like we've got a pretty good separation between those. The property line is essentially there. What that easement is on the other side of where those black outlines are on the property, similar to the NCDOT easement along Billy Graham. All of that is not part of the property, so I would just assume that it's part of the right of way or part of the easement for that. We don't have the numbers in particular on it because we didn't get a site plan or a survey, just the conditional notes. But typically those are pretty large and are reflective on that corridor that is outside of that kind of black shaded area.
Okay, and then just quick follow-up question, access to the site? Would you have to come through that business park that runs along Billy Graham?
Yeah, if you go back to the previous slide, one more, I think it's the site context. So looks like there's a road along that business park, that comes along the backside of those properties that would be extended down to this site. I don't think there's any crossing over the railroad track. So it does have that access along the backside, but it also then kind of keeps it separate from some of the multifamily and commercial development on the other side of the tracks there. And the petitioner does own that adjacent I-1 conditional parcel just next to this. So there'd be some continuity between both properties.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone close to a mic want to make a motion?
Hey, I'll do that. Sounds cool. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-261 as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Properly moved by Welton, seconded by Harvey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay. We have two nays. Very well. Do you want to lead the way?
Yes, I'll lead the way. So this one just concerns me. Oh, sorry. So just the access is one that concerns me with changing that to an industrial zoning at the end of a business park and just a limited access, egress and ingress, especially if there's an emergency. And then just the location between a railroad track and a heavily traveled road gives me some pause on it.
Terry, does that mirror your
Yes.
concerns as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Staff, do we have that as our statement?
Yes, thank you.
Good deal. All right, so that does pass 4-2. With that, we'll move on to number 5, rezoning petition 2022-008 by Ram Realty Acquisitions V LLC. And we're with Joe.
Thanks. This is just shy of 27 acres located on the southeastern corner of Steel Creek Road, interchange with Interstate 485. Near the outlet mall. Current zoning is R3, proposed zoning. Didn't know that my voice was that loud. I'm getting all the feedback here. Proposed zoning is NS and MUD O. They're requesting 3 years vested rights. The 2040 policy map recommends community activity center place type for the site. The proposal would include 4 development areas, A and B there along Steel Creek Road, C and D towards the interior of the site. A and B would be NS, and C and D are proposed MUD O. Areas A and B may include 1 accessory drive-through window with menu boards and or speaker boxes, and an additional accessory drive-through window without menu boards and speaker boxes. A 3rd proposed drive-through lane for an accessory ATM as well. Areas C and D proposed up to 375 residential units, maybe multifamily and or single family attached. Asking for an optional provision for area C to allow parking, vehicular circulation, and vehicular maneuvering between the buildings and structures and the I-485 setback. Requests an additional 1 year of vested rights for a total of 3 years. Limits building height to 70 feet. Transportation commitments highlighted by extending Rigsby Road. That's the east-west street to the eastern property boundary. Also extending Paragon Drive, north-south street to the southern property boundary, an 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path along Steel Creek Road, 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along the internal public streets. Also commits to a combination of windows and operable doors for a minimum of the 60% of each street facing frontage. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed outstanding issues related to transportation and site and building design. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. While the proposed NS portion closest to Steel Creek is inconsistent based on the proposed drive-through uses, staff feels that overall the petition is appropriate given the community activity center place type, as well as the street extensions that would be complementary to the recently approved rezoning just to the east and to the larger neighborhood. Be happy to take any questions.
All right, big chunk of property. Questions I see. Terry, I'll go ahead and recognize to start.
Yeah, can you explain to me that how the road is gonna address or impact 160 at the exit ramp or entrance ramp to the interstate there? Is that gonna be a right only out on there? I'm not sure I can reference that. Can you talk a little bit about the road to the north next to the I-485 ramp?
That's my understanding, but I'll allow CDOT.
Yeah, good evening. This is Patrick Monroe. Are you referring to the red road on the plan on the screen currently, or the improvements along Steel Creek?
The Red Road, and it's not, hang on a second, I'm trying to get the right name here. It's not Rigsby.
The Paragon.
Correct. Yeah, well, does Paragon gonna make a left turn? A left hook there, is that right, Patrick? I'm just trying to understand that. The interface with Steel Creek Road with Paragon then.
So at Steel Creek, it'll intersect with Rigsby Road. That'll be a leftover that is being constructed by this development. They'll also have a right turn lane being installed onto Steel Creek. Rigsby Road will be constructed as a local commercial section, and then that'll intersect up to Paragon Road, which is the north-south road they have shown here. There won't be any turn lanes at that specific intersection.
Okay, maybe I'm not clear because I'm looking at what we have in our information packet and it looks a little different than what you're showing here. So explain to me, Patrick, again, Paragon is going to go from Rigsby and then do a 90-degree turn before the exit ramp on 485. Is that correct?
So that'll be abandoned. The section of Paragon that you see on this map may be a little outdated. I'm not sure if I'm seeing the same screen as you guys, but the section north of Rigsby will be abandoned and will become private property. So they may have some internal driveways, streets up in that area, but the section that will remain public will be what is south of Rigsby Road.
Okay.
It's not gonna connect up to 45 or anything like that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next phrase. I'm sorry it's taking so long to describe or ask the question, but I'm trying to understand how Paragon Drive is going to end. Will it be in the form of, is it a cul-de-sac? Is it a turnaround? Is it a dead end with, I'm just trying to understand that design
Yeah,
piece.
I don't think they have that detailed out on the current plan. That will be private property.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep, no problem.
Are you satisfied with that? I'm trying to make sure I understand too.
I know, I'm just gonna, it helps me, I'm not gonna be supportive of this petition at this point because it's not clear on the transportation resolutions that we have here. I'm also have a bit of concern, and this required a traffic impact study, did it not?
This did require a traffic impact study.
And I don't think I have had access to the traffic impact study to evaluate this appropriately at this time, but yeah, I think that was my question around this particular street, about what it was going to look like in the property and how it's going to be addressed, and understanding more importantly, the traffic impact study and associated uses with the fast food drive-throughs. So I'm just building that case for my lack of understanding of the petition at this time. Thank you.
Understood. That was a good question though. I'll go Russell and then Weldon.
No, actually, Commissioner Lansdale asked the exact same questions I was going to ask, so I'll pass.
And I was just going to say to Commissioner Lansdale, on the second page of the site plan, it appears to say that that right of way north of Rigsby will be abandoned. And to the south, it seems to say proposed connection to adjacent development. I don't know if that's the clarification that you needed or not, but that was the way that I saw that particular element. So just out there. Okay.
I think there may have been a little bit of confusion with the way we marked this up on for the presentation with the red lines showing along that right of way, that it should just be labeled to be abandoned to match what's actually depicted in the site plan, as Commissioner Welton pointed out.
All right. Good point. So we did draw a road, even though it's abandoned. Is that a fair way to recap?
Yeah, I mean, there's currently one there, but the plan for them is to abandon that and
Right.
develop it out as a private network.
Part of this development. Okay. Harvey,
No question. The developer and, excuse me. The developer and their team met with the Steel Creek Residents Association a couple of weeks ago. They seem to have processed it all. They had a couple of questions which they were sufficiently answered based on their board and their folks. And I think they did a great job in answering all their folks, and they seem to support it. So, yeah.
very well. Any other questions?
One more quick
Russell.
question. Just to confirm, was there a 1 acre park dedication included in this rezoning?
Yes, that was added after the public hearing.
And then how would that road be accessed internally to development area C? Because it looks like Rigsby Road would not be able to be extended because it would be off the property line into the adjacent property to the south.
So the adjacent property to the south is built in a half street on their side. This project would build, I believe, a half street on the north side on their frontage. And that would connect Rigsby Road back through to a larger rezoning that just happened to the south through, I think Novant was one of the petitioners or one of the develops, hospital to be developed there, as well as some other mixed use apartments and retail. So that is a pretty extensive street network, and this ties into all of that. So that road will continue east Rigsby and be built half by this petition, half by the petition to the south, and that will connect through to the larger development going on all around it. So.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions? Thoughts? Anyone wish to make a motion?
Hey, I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-008 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Harvey second.
Properly moved by Welton, seconded by Harvey. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We are 3-3. This will not move forward with that. Is there any additional debate? That motion fails.
So if I may add a comment for the opposition, since I started this one, I will say that without the review of the traffic impact study and outstanding questions regarding transportation solutions is the foundation for my opposition at this time. So beyond that, for staff moving forward, would really like to have these documents be more robust for the rezoning petition staff analysis to allow better access to the information that you guys were using to evaluate and make your recommendations so that we can be on the same page and evaluate the data as it's presented to you for your review as well as for us. So that's just a suggestion moving forward, especially on this case, since there was a traffic impact study and would like to have access to that and the conversations around that. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Rhodes. I agree. That probably would have maybe swayed my decision. With areas A and B being zoned for drive-through, I have some concerns about traffic and process, like how is all that going to be streamlined? And it's not clear at this time.
So Dave, if we're unable to reach decision, do we, shall I entertain any alternative motions? And at this point, I don't think the votes go either way.
You could entertain an alternative motion, or you could leave it as a automatic rollover for the next meeting. And that would automatically get deferred then to our, I guess, February or March meeting, whatever. I think that's March 7th. So that would just,
That is my
you could
understanding as
entertain
well.
an alternative motion which would be, I guess, the opposite of what the initial motion was, which was to approve. But if that doesn't get the votes, that also then would just continue through that rollover process.
Thank you. So I'll put it out. If anyone wishes to make an alternative motion, we can entertain that. If we don't, we can just let this roll.
And by letting it roll, we'll see it again
In a month.
In a month.
Perhaps with more data.
Hopefully, and a more cleaned up presentation as well. Thank you.
I'd like to just get some clarification on what y'all would like to see for that. The transportation improvements that are in the traffic impact study are incorporated into the site plan, into the conditional notes. So all the commitments of what was determined as a result of the traffic study reviewed by CDOT and NCDOT are incorporated into the conditional notes. So every aspect of transportation related improvements that were found and approved by both agencies are committed to. As a result of that, that's the only way the petition would actually be in front of y'all right now for consideration. So aside from providing the actual traffic impact study document, everything that was determined and found to be needed to mitigate traffic impacts from the site are incorporated into conditional notes. So is it just now a copy of the study that you'd like to see?
Well, I think that's a great beginning. As last month's Board of County Commission meeting indicated that there is some concern about access to these comments that are made by staff and divisions within the city of Charlotte and county of Mecklenburg, that they're not unified in one place. And I think having that traffic impact study, the criteria and evaluation tools are important to me as we look at other projects that do fit the criteria for a traffic impact study. I think that I appreciate your request, but I think having links and opportunities to review that specific document are important for me moving forward. So yes, Dave, would love to be able to have a copy of that included in our documents.
Okay, we'll reach out to CDOT and see what they can provide on that.
I'd like to recognize that we have been joined by Commissioner Gaston. That potentially changes up since we have not closed this out completely. If anyone wish to remake a motion, we could try to vote again with one additional commissioner.
Is she up? You know where we are. I'll make it again.
I think there is another motion that is on the table. We can, actually, can we just move this to the end of the agenda and come back to it while we're getting back up to speed here with our 7th? Or would you rather go ahead and?
I think it'd probably be better to just either make an alternative motion. I think that'd be the only option at this point would be to make an alternative motion. I don't know if we'd be able to make the same motion that just didn't carry, but if you want to table it, that's fine. I can do a little bit of research to see.
Okay, with no alternative motion, we'll move on to the next one. That would be item number 6. I'm on the wrong page of my screen. So item 6, rezoning petition 2022-059 by Taylor Morrison. And that is going to be back to Joe.
Thank you. This is approximately 50.7 acres located on the north side of Garrison Road, west of the intersection with Horton Road. Near the River District. Current zoning is Mud O Air, Lower Lake Wiley Protected Area, as well as R3 Air, Lower Lake Wiley Protected Area. Proposed zoning is for MX2 Innovative, and both of those overlays would carry through. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 for most of the site there in yellow, and community activity center place type for the area shaded in blue. Proposal is for up to 335 single-family detached, attached, and multifamily dwelling units at a density of 6.62 DUA. Building height be limited to 40 feet. Following innovative standards are proposed. Internal private streets will have public access easements, no minimum lot size, no minimum lot width. Public street frontage is not required for individual units. However, all units will be within 400 feet of a public or private street. Setback of 14 feet from back of curb along private streets for individual units. Minimum 30-foot setback from the existing Garrison Road right-of-way. Minimum 5-foot side yard and 10-foot rear yard from property lines. Prohibits vinyl as a building material except on windows and soffits. Limits blank wall expanses for all corner and end units fronting a public or private street to 10 feet. Commits to the following transportation improvements, north, south, and east-west public streets with stubs to adjacent properties. 60 feet of right-of-way dedication along Garrison Road, 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path along Garrison Road, 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk along all other public streets. Proposes at least 3 the following elements in amenity areas: covered pavilion, shelter, benches, picnic tables, fitness facility, yoga room, gathering room, pool, butterfly garden, and dog area. Provides a minimum of 100-foot swim buffer or 60 feet beyond the top of the bank of both sides of Beaver Dam Creek to Mecklenburg County for a future greenway. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed outstanding issues related to transportation and site and building design. Staff does not recommend approval of the petition in its current form. With reduction in unit count and development outcomes that better align with neighborhood 1 place type, staff could consider reevaluating recommendation. It is inconsistent with the policy map recommendation for the neighborhood 1 place type. Most of the site is neighborhood 1 place type. A portion of the site is community activity center place type, in which that portion would be consistent. But in addition to that inconsistency, Garrison Road in its entirety, we don't feel is, or could be heavily impacted by the development of the site. And for all those reasons, we do not recommend approval in current form. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions? I will go with Walton first and then Lansdale.
Thanks, Joe. I had questions about this particular area being neighborhood 1, when it does appear as though there are splotches of neighborhood 1 spattered in community, center. And not that I did a whole lot of research, but why are those yellow parts to the, I guess, west of Garrison Road not blue? I think that is basically my question.
Right, that's a good question. The exercise that resulted in the 2040 policy map painted in broad brushes and in many cases reflects the underlying current zoning. So those properties that are designated as neighborhood 1 here are zoned single family residential. So that's the reasoning there. And a lot of that community activity center place type reflects the rezoning for the River District.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I understand that. I tried to make some sense out of the size of the parcels and just looking at them on Polaris and seeing, which ones were big and small. But the challenge I have with staff's not recommending is that as if my opinion mattered, I believe that it should all be community activity centers. So I have challenge with that. So that's my 2 cents.
Just a couple of quick questions. This is outside of the evacuation zone for the Catawba River.
That I'm not sure of. I don't think we have access to that on our evaluation. It may be, I'm not just not familiar with where those zones are.
Thanks. I think it is right, it's right near here, but, you know, I think it looks like at the top of our form, it says, you know, there are no outstanding issues for transportation. So the outstanding issues were resolved, specifically just to make sure that on item number 3, the revision of the site plan and conditional notes, committing to improve widening existing Garrison Road from Horton to the southern property line should be widened to provide 2 11-foot lanes with a pavement section in accordance to CLDSM, major thoroughfare pavement section. So tell me what that means in reality for the widening of that particular section of Garrison Road.
Thanks. I'll defer that question to CDOT.
Yeah, it's Patrick again. This petition will be required to improve Garrison Road along their frontage, which goes up to the West Boulevard extension improvements. We were working with the petitioner to try to coordinate some additional widening up towards Horton Road. We weren't able to accomplish that with this particular petition. There is another petition south of here that will be improving Garrison Road all the way through the frontage of this property further south. There is some issues with Garrison Road right away. It's maintenance right away that is through NCDOT. So we've been working extensively with NCDOT in this petition to coordinate those improvements and to ensure that they can build them within their frontage. So what you see here today is the improvements that will be made at the very least to the first access point. They are required to improve Garrison Road. If they aren't able to get the improvements in front of I think it's 4 or 5 houses due to the right of way, then they'll be restricted to have the first access only until the remaining petition improves the full section of the road.
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. You know, this is, it's hard for me to look at these parcels independently in the River District, knowing that they're all going to be interconnected eventually, right? So if we make a change here, it's going to, our nicely set up dominoes might start falling inadvertently. The question I have for this particular section, and I'm going to get in the weeds with you, Patrick, so my apologies ahead of time, but as far as the Charlotte Walks and Bikes policies, remind me how an 11-foot lane is recommended within that Charlotte Walks and Bikes policy for on-road accommodations for bicycle, non-vehicular traffic.
The 12-foot multi-use path or the 11-foot vehicular travel lane?
The 11-foot vehicular travel lane. So are we certain that that is part of the recommendation of the Charlotte Walks and Bikes policies, that an 11-foot travel lane is sufficient?
So this particular road, we take our streetscape typical recommendation from the Charlotte Streets map. The bike policy, Charlotte bike policy and the Charlotte walk policy supplement those typical sections and sometimes go above and beyond in the terms of pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. But the typical section that we take is from the streets map. With that said, this area in particular, like I mentioned, is very constrained due to the status of the right of way. This is in the ETJ. It's not the right of way that we would think of, I guess, in the sense of the typical right of way that you see. What's out there currently is maintenance right of way between the existing ditch lines. So there's only the ability to really maintain what's out there and make the improvements that we have laid out with NCDOT currently in this petition. So there's certain criteria to work around on this particular section. I'll say that 11-foot lanes is our standard travel lane that we do use in the city. Hopefully that got you somewhere. If not,
Hey, thanks very much for that clarification. I just, the outstanding issues with the right of way just offers me a little bit of heartburn here. And I'm trying to get my head around that decision for 11-foot travel lanes is appropriate, but yeah, I'm just a bit concerned on that one for those reasons. Thank you.
yeah, I will add that they will have it's 11-foot lanes, but there will be a turn lane at their site driveways. So that helps you.
No, internal to the neighborhood, there will be a turn lane?
No,
On
turn
Garrison Road.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Russell, go ahead.
Looking at this, it says that Charlotte Water says they need donated pipeline infrastructure to this site. And it is not clear if the petitioner is providing that.
They would be required to provide that if they wanted to tap into the water infrastructure. So they'd need to do that, be at their own expense.
Thank you. Yeah, this one is a bit of a conflict for me. I think I have professed a fondness for the type of product that's being developed in quadplexes, but I do not know, and I think I agree with staff here, I don't know that this product in this location is the best use of the land. And I also don't think that, understanding that this will be, if I'm understanding correctly, this will be a rental product, that this would be the best use of our residents, because we are essentially banishing them to the land between the river and the airport. And we really don't have any type of comprehensive transportation plan to address that. So in addition between infrastructure and transportation and product use, this one scares me a lot. Understanding that it is going to be surrounded by the river district and there's some other things that are going on there. I think it was Councilman Winston who was concerned about this becoming one of those issues where you're becoming a deal-making city instead of a plan-following city. So just wanted to put those comments on the record. I'm very concerned about this product and how we're setting up our residents in the future.
Any other, for the record, want to note that Commissioner Harvey has had to leave for a medical emergency. Any other questions? Go right ahead, Rose.
This is Commissioner Ross. I have a question for Dave, just to follow up on the water question. So Councilwoman Mayfield brought that up about the water and sewage concerns. You indicated that the petitioner, in order to move forward, they would be responsible for those. Have they come to any type of resolution with Charlotte Water to determine what that would look like?
Not that I don't know of, but typically they work through all that when they get through this process and get into permitting. They won't be able to get any permits or secure any really development rights after they get through the entitlement process. So this really just gives them the opportunity to approach the project and pursue it in permitting after. And then if they get through the rezoning side, they go into permitting, and then that's where they would coordinate all the water and sewer infrastructure. So if there's pipes that need to be brought onto the site or extended from another location, all that typically gets worked out. And it's not an uncommon scenario where you might not have a water line within, a couple hundred or even 1,000 feet from a property. You have to put that in the ground and bring it to the site. I think that's something, again, that they would work through on the permitting side. And this was more of when we get these comments from Charlotte Water, it's to kind of give us a heads up, but it's also a heads up to the petitioner that these are things you need to be aware of should you get through this process, move into permitting, so there's no surprises if they get to that point.
Understand.
Any additional questions or concerns? All right, I think we have a pretty mixed bag here. I know my concerns, personally, I'll take my 2 seconds here. This seems awfully dense for no bus. A lot of infrastructure questions surrounding it. I mean, the connectivity to the river district would be nice. And I certainly see this being a complementary product potentially to that, but I'm not sure that I see there's a lot of, seems just too much, too heavy for this space at this time. But motions, we can vote up or down, keep in mind, guys.
All right, I would motion to deny. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to deny this petition, I move that we recommend denial of petition 2022-059. Oh, oops. And the adoption of the consistency statement.
There you go. And just, right.
This is Commissioner Rhodes, second.
Thank you. Properly moved by Russell, seconded by Rhodes. I am, okay, just making sure everyone's still in the room. I was like, wait, now we have another problem. All in favor to deny, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That is unanimous, 6-0 to deny position number 2022-059. Does staff need any additional support on that or comment?
No, our recommendation and consistency is the
Right.
same. So y'all are just taking that. There wasn't anything additional unless you wanted to add additional points of concern, but if not, we're good.
I think we hear you guys. All right, moving on to number 7, rezoning petition 2022-065 by Griffin Family Investments. And we're with Michael.
Thank you. This is approximately 37.10 acres located on the east side of Beatties Ford Road, south of McIntyre Avenue, and north of Sunset Road. The current zoning is R3, single family residential. The proposed zoning is UR2 CD, urban residential conditional. The adopted place type recommends the neighborhood 1 place type for this site. So this particular proposal allows up to 236 townhome style dwelling units for a density of 6.3 units per acre. They are committing to a 8-foot planting strip and a 6-foot sidewalk and 5-foot bike lane along Beatties Ford Road. They provide internal sidewalks and pedestrian connections through the site. They're going to construct a CATS ADA compliant bus waiting pad and shelter. They provide future street connections to the north and south of the site. They're also providing a minimum of 2 amenity areas, which would include a clubhouse, pool, cabana, dog parks, garden, and landscaping. They commit to 100-foot wide buffer along the eastern property line adjacent to the industrial zone property. And they commit to architectural standards, including building materials. So some of the changes since the hearing, the petitioner is committing to incorporate stormwater requirements for the adjacent parcel into this particular rezoning site's stormwater capacity and design so that the adjacent parcel is not encumbered by on-site stormwater control requirements. And they're also are going to provide structural fill to this adjacent property owner, if so desired, at the time of the site grading. So it is inconsistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for the neighborhood 1 site. There are a couple of minor outstanding transportation issues, which the petitioner will correct. And staff does recommend approval upon the resolution of those outstanding issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see Terry's ready. I'll let Lansdale go first, and then Welton, and then Russell.
I'm sorry, these are my first petitions, so I'm still struggling to get my language and my cadence correct, but I did get some feedback on this, and this is really for CDOT staff, is that there was some curiosity questions about how do we communicate these parcel impacts on Beatty's Ford Road as a cumulative conversation. So the neighborhood reached out to me and asked those questions about, what is it really going to look like for Beatty's Ford Road? So, I'm going to be supporting this petition at this time, but would like to see some more changes and more corrections for transportation solutions related to this parcel. Thank you.
Commissioner Welton, I have two questions. Is there are transportation improvements where the two egresses are there crosswalks across there? I mean, there's a grocery store right down the street, that old 10-minute walkable thing. I didn't know if there were crosswalks there or any place else. I realize that this is also a state road and that may mean other things, but that's my first question. If you can give me some insight, no insight.
Sorry, I'm not sure if there is a crosswalk there or further down, but I would throw that to CDOT. Maybe they.
Yeah, I didn't know if one was required. I did see that there was a median on being placed at Griffin Crossing. Is that the name of the street? So that's a right in, right out only. But what's the other one? Alexander something? Alexander Place is a full movement exit. And just wondering if either one of those places had a safe crossing there, again, with the proximity to the grocery, also to provide some access if, it could be anywhere along there. We had somebody speak at in opposition to this and they'd love to have a crosswalk right in front of their place. So if the petitioner were to hear that and want to help put a crosswalk in, I'm just saying. So
hey, this is Travis with CDOT. Currently, there isn't a crosswalk there. I looked into our pedestrian crossing committee and some of our past notes, and I did not see any requests for a crosswalk there. That request can be made and it can be reviewed. We also spoke with NCDOT. We review all these projects with them, and the requirement of a crosswalk did not come up.
okay, if that got made, I think that'd be a great request. Also, my second question is, there were a couple of concerns about buffering that the northern neighbor, I think the lady's name was McQueen, if I'm recalling correctly, and also the Delz's property. I didn't see a specific thing. You know how you guys sometimes say it's a Class A buffer, class blah, blah, blah. Is that language going to be in there so that it's very clear as to what is?
Yeah, we can go back and look at that particular language, but Delta's is no requirement.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think that the petitioner had said that they would work with Ms. McQueen. Yeah, to somehow create some buffering there. So I just wondered if it had gotten in, but we'll imagine that gets to the right person and they will make some good decisions that way. I'm done.
All right. Russell?
So can you go back and clarify, there was a mention of structural fill imported. Is that specifically referencing the issues brought to bear by the Deltas?
Yes, it's my understanding that the petitioner would provide the structural fill. So if they wanted, they could fill in their stormwater pond, and if they so choose, could then use that for parking.
Okay, and then would the petitioner be required to put up a fencing or a berm or something? Because I know there was concern about if the parking was enlarged, that there was a fear that people could just whip around the corner and park on the Delta's property and simply walk across. And with that being a backloaded alley, I'm just wondering if that has been taken into account.
I don't believe that they're going to have enough access from the petitioner's property to come across that. But I think they are doing a fence of some sort between them and the Deltas.
And that just didn't make it into the notes at this point, or just checking? I know this is a move, just checking. I know this is a moving thing, target so far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
I would say that if there's any questions about any of those conversations, probably best to suspend the rules and ask the petitioner who's here.
It's kind of where I was heading.
Yeah.
Is everyone, well, I'll need to call for a vote, but we'll define the recipe. So I would need a motion to suspend the rules, and then we'll vote on that, and then we can craft our questions.
Ms. Commissioner Russell, motion to suspend the rules to allow petitioner to discuss.
Agents.
Commissioner Rhodes, second.
Moved by Russell, seconded by Rhodes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nope. Okay. Let's craft our question. No, it's you, I know. Do you want to take a first shot at it? I mean, we might have a couple of other counterpoints that we want to address, but
Yes.
let's make sure we have a good solid starting point.
So I'm gonna start with the easy one, fencing. Has there been any discussion about separating the your property from the Delta's property to prevent people from parking and using their property as their own?
Yes, there are ongoing conversations with the Deltas and the petitioner. I think we have the two most important commitments. There is, petitioner is prepared to commit to screening and fencing between both the Deltas and the McQueen property. The hesitation on that is there needs to be a little analysis on how this fill is working for their pond to know, I guess, the quantifiable standard of the width of the buffer and where it would be located. But our expectation is that, sorry.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Expectation is if the zoning committee takes action on this, and understand, we had to submit this plan for you 2 days after the hearing. So we got in what we could. If the zoning committee takes action, our expectation is that in a revised plan following this meeting, it will include the buffering on both of those locations.
If you do the crosswalk, I think, no, I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
Crosswalk request noted.
Okay. Terry.
I would like to have a follow-up and with Travis for staff as a question here. You know, when we see
This is not a question for the petitioner's
not.
agent. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we
Okay.
do the,
Unsuspend?
right, I'm just gonna gavel in that we've
My apologies.
unsuspended our rule, we have reinforced our rules, and you're off. Right, go ahead.
Thank you. This is really for Travis. When we see a vehicle trip generation go from 300 to proposed to 1,700 trips per day, I think it's incumbent upon CDOT to challenge NCDOT to address those countermeasures as part of the zoning and transportation resolution moving forward. But I appreciate your work. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Okay, I've been notified we might have reenacted our rules a little too quickly there, sorry. We'd need another motion. We have an initial question. Commissioner Rhodes, do you want to go ahead and make the motion, or go ahead and state your question so that we can
Sure.
suspend the rules again?
I move to suspend the rules so that we can ask the petitioner questions.
Second. Moved by Rhodes, seconded by Russell. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Mr. Rhodes.
So I have a question. I had a lot of concern about the hearing that you had not one, but two oppositional neighbors. One being a huge staple in that community. I lived in that area probably for almost 10 years, and know the work that the Kappas that are across the street as well as the Deltas do in that neighborhood, in the community. In addition, you had a resident, a homeowner who had some concerns. And I have a concern about someone new coming in, not having some sort of resolve with the neighborhood before you enter. Do you believe if this motion is passed, if this is passed, that you will be able to come to some compromise with the Deltas along with the neighbors in the surrounding area?
I certainly hope so. The Griffins, the family that is developing the property, have been there for almost 80 years. I think they have a good track record for what they've done in the corridor. And certainly, I think, as the Deltas have said, they kind of came out maybe late and had to hurry to the game. So I think both sides have been making progress. I think there were meetings between the parties over the weekend, and I got some additional notes. And I certainly won't speak for the Deltas, but I believe that the city council, I feel, is very in tune to their concerns. And my expectation is if they are not satisfied, then the zoning will not be approved. So certainly, my team is going to work hard to see if we can get that done.
Thank you.
Rules are back in place. All right. Any other questions for staff? Or comments that we needed, debate?
Just one quick. Courtney, I see that there were 14 people at the community meeting. So that's okay, because so often we see 0 or 2. So folks did get out and participate there. So I'm cool with that part.
Anyone else? All right, we've got some good staff responses. We even heard from the petitioner. Anyone feeling motivated to make a motion?
This Commissioner Walton will make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-065 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Mrs. Gaston, I second the motion.
Moved by Welton, seconded by Gaston. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We are 4-2 at that point. It passes, but we want to make sure we capture the.
As I stated before to the petitioner, it is my hope that they can come to a resolve with the standing people that are in the community and moving in the community. So it is my hope it's passed, but it is my hope that there is some compromise and some resolution.
So I think it'd be safe to say that those that did vote also voted with the presumption that some of the things we discussed here that were said to be included are as well. But all right. Need anything else? Dave? All right. Got it. Moving on, item number 8. Good old 8. Rezoning petition 2022-075 by Morteb LLC.
All right, this is 15.74 acres on the north of the east side of Westinghouse Boulevard, west of South Boulevard. It's currently zoned I1 CD light industrial conditional and light industrial and I2 general industrial. The proposed zoning is TOD-CC and TOD-NC. Actually, I'll just quickly make a correction on the proposed zoning. The current zoning. The current zoning is actually just I2. At the public hearing, they had still included this portion to the south of Westinghouse, and that's why there's other 2 zoning districts, the I1 and I1 CD are coming from. Now with it being just a portion to the north, it's only currently zoned I2. The 2040 policy map calls for manufacturing and logistics place type for the site. Staff does not recommend approval of the petition. It is inconsistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for manufacturing and logistics place type. It is adjacent to TOD zoning to the east and within a half mile of the Sharon Road West Transit Station. However, the policy map identifies parcels for manufacturing and logistics, and additionally, the parcels which are already zoned TOD in the area haven't began to transition to transit supportive uses. So those are the reasons why staff would not recommend approval. If it was approved, it would change the place type from manufacturing and logistics to community activity center for the TOD-CC portions and neighborhood center for the TOD-NC portions of the site. Emma, could you go back to the zoning slide real quick? Just wanted to clarify that the portion that they're asking for TOD-NC is this parcel and this parcel, and this would be TOD-CC. And I'll take any questions.
All right, thanks, John. I will just, before we jump too far into debate, can you guys give me a little more of the read? I know Dave gave us something on the podium the other night on the staff rationale for opposing again.
So again, part of it is just to try to be supportive of the recommendations of the policy map for manufacturing and logistics uses. There's still, even if this were to be rezoned and approved, there's still pretty heavy industrial uses along Crafters Lane that is outside of the rezoning petition in these areas here that I'm pointing to, which would be the west side of Crafters. And then, and additionally, as our rationale mentions, the areas that have already were, I guess, proactively rezoned TOD-CC along Crump. I understand the petitioner does own some of these, but the ones that are proactively rezoned, they have not began to transition to transit supportive uses at this stage. So that's what staff was looking at is it's not quite, that transition hasn't really carried down this far yet in this area. And so that's why staff was not really supportive of that change at this time.
Okay, so part of your rationale is that it hasn't started transitioning yet.
And there's already parcels, that are owned
that are
through
zoned
CC, and they haven't changed use yet. They're still industrial uses.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead, guys. I just wanted to make sure we all had staff's the whole picture there. Any questions or comments on this one? Commissioner Russell?
Yep, I do. Just another quick question following on to that. So understanding that we're concerned that it hasn't transitioned yet at what's already TOD-CC, then I also hear concern about it, the industrial area to the left, screen left of that. So are we, I guess, is staff also looking at this property as being a buffer, a transition buffer between an existing TOD-CC and the industrial as part of the reason for recommended against it?
I don't think we were looking at it necessarily as a buffer. I think it was like John had mentioned, the general area that is really from that TOD line west down Westinghouse. If we were able to kind of zoom out, it's majority manufacturing, logistics, place type recommendations, and not seeing some of that. So when we see that and there's an inconsistency, it's, what's the general policy for the area? How widespread is that place type recommendation, which in this case, it's pretty large. What's the context of the area, which we haven't, as John mentioned, seen some of the transition we've seen on some other petitions even that we have this evening that are in some areas that are a little bit further along in that transition. Just felt the policy wasn't quite at that point ready to make that transition from a manufacturing logistics to something beyond that. But certainly recognize that it's within close proximity to the station area. There is TOD right around it, but just from a purely, policy standpoint of the things that we look at when something's inconsistent, there were just not enough of those other boxes that really gave us enough comfort to say, yeah, we think the map should necessarily be kind of changed in this specific location.
Douglas?
Two questions. I know we did a rezoning just south of Westinghouse there. Is that not, I'm thinking it's the UR one there. Is that
Yes.
a similar,
That area was already recommended, well, it was already zoned residential. This area here was
Yeah.
zoned, I think, R12 or something, R12 MF. And then there was a portion to the south of that, if you remember that rezoning, where they were proposing duplex dwellings, that was already zoned single-family residential, and they went up for, basically, they changed the zoning for all of that area to the UR zoning district to allow them to do the duplexes and the townhomes. So in that area, in that case, it was already zoned and the land use plan recommended residential uses there. So that's why we were comfortable with that zoning change. And it's right next to the Sterling neighborhood. It was basically an extension of them and does provide the Sterling neighborhood a bit of transition of use type and density to the industrial that's just off the screen to the further west of their neighborhood.
okay. Just another question, there may not be an answer in this. That seems within a half a mile of at least the Sharon Road West Station. When the proactive zoning was done, what was the criteria? And you guys may not know this.
Yeah.
Why did some parcels get included and why did some not?
So basically the alignment rezonings that were done as part of the new TOD zoning districts, they looked at they're not in effect anymore, but the transit station area plans. So the Sharon Road West Transit Station Area Plan and the I-45 South Boulevard Transit Station Area Plan had areas recommended for TOD use and zoning. And those areas were the ones that we basically did alignment rezonings to the new TOD district. So these areas here were not zoned TOD before, but through that alignment process, because the area plans at the time recommended TOD for these, we aligned the zoning to be TOD.
Okay. I'm slightly conflicted in that if this goes to TOD, what are we supposed to put near our train stations? Or, our transit stations, I guess.
Yeah, I think, we had a lot of back and forth on this one internally on our side as well. And, I know, where we landed is one that may raise some questions and, have some conversation about. I think what, again, we looked at from that standpoint was, is this an area where we felt the policy map really wasn't in a good place as far as a potential transition for that place type recommendation? If it were maybe IMU and we felt that could transition a little bit quicker, maybe that would give us a little bit more policy basis to look at TOD in this location. But again, if TOD was developed in this area, it is within that walk distance. It is within that, walk shed of, I think, the station either to the south and maybe even to the north to some degree. But just from that policy standpoint of having a recently adopted plan that carried that manufacturing and logistics recommendation, even from those station area plans, as John mentioned, it kind of gives us some identification that, this area was kind of intended for that use. And if there were to change it, we need to kind of have a pretty good long look at it. And we just didn't see that transition just happening as quickly as maybe the market is, but we're not always up to speed with the market. So that's another challenge for us.
Anyone else? Anyone feeling motiony?
Commissioner Rhodes, I'll make a motion.
Mr. Rhodes, go right ahead.
Have a review the petition and consider the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition. I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-075 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have to read the one that's on the
We have to
screen.
read the one up on the screen, sorry.
Yes, so you would just need to come up with,
Why?
yeah, if you want to make a recommendation to approve the petition, then you would make that recommendation, say we feel that it is reasonable in the public interest and provide, a couple bullets and points as to why you feel it's appropriate to recommend approval.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Okay. So,
We can help you craft those bullets potentially.
Gotcha.
I'll let you read and then we can resolve that.
so we need the one for approval, correct? Gotcha, okay. This position is found to be inconsistent with the 2040 policy map 2022 based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing. And because the policy recommends manufacturing and logistics place site. However, we find this petition to be reasonable in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing because we have zoned like right in that area. We've zoned right in that area, areas that have been inconsistent with the 2040 plan. And I'm not convinced otherwise that this is different from the ones that we approved in the area.
I would suggest that we also include a bullet point that it otherwise conforms to the previous requirements for TOD zoning.
Yep.
Okay. So
It's proximity to the library, the Sharon
Yep.
Road West Station, and what is that? I-485 station? I think that's what it's.
Yeah.
Sharon Road West.
Yeah, those proximity to those stations.
Jerry, do you have something to add?
Okay.
Nope, okay. Is that sufficient?
yes. that works.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, we'll take that to a vote now. Everyone heard it?
Can we get a second?
Oh, did we get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Welton. Thank you for asking.
What would you do without me?
I don't know.
No.
You the glue.
We don't know.
All right, all in favor of approving this, this rezoning, I'll say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay with Lansdale, that's it. We are 5-1. Terry, go ahead and give us your opposing view.
Just trying to respect the inconsistency statement by staff and to understand the rationale. More rationale for me is needed to understand the change. Thank you.
Understood? All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Moving on to number 9, rezoning petition 2022-077 by Blue Ocean. Joe.
Thanks. This is approximately 3.64 acres located on the north side of Yorkmont Road between Beam Road and Water Ridge Parkway. The current zoning is I-1 Airport Noise Overlay. Proposed zoning is Mud O, keeping that airport noise overlay. The 2040 policy map calls for innovation mixed-use place type. The proposal is to accommodate the adaptive reuse of a hotel building with the option to convert to multifamily residential units. Would maintain the ability to use the building as a hotel. The same number of units are proposed as either hotel or multifamily units. The building height would be limited to the existing height of 46 feet. An optional provision is requested to keep the existing parking and maneuvering between the existing building and street while not allowing additional nonconformity. Commits to installing an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along the site's Yorkmont Road frontage. And this is a change since the public hearing. They're also committing to providing 180 days, that's okay. 180 days notice to residents of intent to convert to the existing hotel rooms to residential units. Petitioner intends to work with Charlotte Housing and Neighborhood Services to encourage residents in good standing to apply for on-site renovated units. Since the public hearing, they also addressed an outstanding issue regarding site and building design in addition to that anti-displacement conditional note addition. Staff recommends approval and be happy to take questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioner Russell, go right ahead.
So I have a question here. I know there was some debate on council about this because they were concerned about the displacement of residents, but correct me if I'm wrong, is this not a hotel?
It is currently a hotel. And it could be either a hotel or multi-family residence.
Okay, and so it can't be half and half. So it's gonna be a full conversion to a resident, like a multifamily,
That is the option that they are seeking, but they could extend it as a hotel.
if they wanted to. Okay, and then my second question is, does the city currently have some program where there are long-term residents in this hotel?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So you know how, it's, for instance, when, and I don't remember the name of the apartment complexes, I'm drawing a blank here, but the pipes burst over Christmas and they had to move the residents into a hotel and the city was paying for their hotel expenses.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, is there a program for this particular hotel that we know of?
A program to move those
No,
residents?
like long-term residents. Is the city paying for hotel fees for residents here for some unknown reason?
Not that I'm aware of, but that's not any information that we've received.
Okay. Yeah, and the only reason I'm making that point is because there was some concern on council that we're displacing residents and changing this over to a different use. But if it's a hotel, you're not really displacing residents because they're not residents. A hotel by design is meant to be transient. So you're not so much displacing anyone as you are adaptively reusing a building that's already there. So that reduces your carbon footprint and you're allowing it to maintain some functional use and becoming a multi-family dwelling. And considering it that there are employment centers and there are some amenities in the area, that this is a good use of that land. Otherwise, it would fall into decay and then you'd have to tear it down and do something else with it. So I think for what you're doing, I think this is a pretty innovative idea. And I would hope that we would see more projects like this and not be concerned with a population that's already transient.
Anyone else?
I agree with what Commissioner Russell said. I was just out there today and I was trying to figure, there's no obvious sign that it is permanent residence.
Yes, that's why I wanted to make that statement, because I think there was some confusion about that. And so that made me think, well, maybe there's a city that we're housing somebody out there.
Yeah.
And this will change the policy map from an innovative mixed-use development, correct?
No, I believe it's consistent with.
It is. I thought it was. I'm just making sure. I was going to say, that's funny if it isn't, because we think it's pretty innovative, but all right, sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Rhodes.
I think the council alluded to the assumption of how extended stays are used for permanent purposes with transient citizens. However, in this case, you're turning it into more of a permanent situation as opposed to having it to have the facade of an extended stay, which is a hotel. So I would have to agree. I do support the use of it because with the extended stay, you're going to have families that live in there. You should have the amenities. There should be the security. There should be the proper protocols, and it's not there. Hence the spiral of extended stays over the last few years.
All right. Anyone wish to make a motion?
This is Lansdale. While I'd hope to include safe and equitable transportation as one of the rationales for recommendation, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend the approval of petition number 2022-077 as it appears before us in the adoption of the consistency statement. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Gaston. I second that.
Properly moved by Lansdale, seconded by Gaston. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimous, 6-0. Moving on to number 10, rezoning petition 2022-082 by Maple Multifamily Land SE LP. Maybe it's Southeast LP. Michael, make sure your mic's on. I had a comment that weren't very loud last time.
Great, thank you. This is approximately 3.26 acres located on the south side of West Mallard Creek Church Road, east of Interstate 85 and north of Berkeley Place Drive. The current zoning is R3 single-family residential and R43 MF multifamily residential. Next slide. So the 2040 policy map calls for a neighborhood 1 place type in this area. So this proposal will allow up to 305 multifamily dwelling units. They do limit the maximum building height to 65 feet. They limit the maximum number of buildings to 8. The petitioner is committing to an 8-foot wide planting strip and a 12-foot wide multi-use path along the site's frontage of Mallard Creek Church Road. They commits to extending the existing Wright Hill Road with connection to Mallard Creek Church Road with the inclusion of a 6-foot sidewalks and 8-foot planting strip. They are providing an ADA compliant bus stop. They're committing to provide outdoor amenity areas and common spaces, which will include a minimum, actually they've changed it from 2 to 4 of those following amenities of a clubhouse, combination of hardscape, softscape, pool, cabana, benches and seatings, landscaping and art. And they do provide architectural standards, including building materials. So some of the changes since the hearing, the petitioner has agreed to contribute $50,000 to CDOT for infrastructure improvements in the Mallard Creek area. And they are providing a minimum of 20 EVSE installed parking spaces. There are no outstanding issues, and staff does recommend approval of this petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to go with Lansdale first.
Just a quick question for staff, making sure I understand that there is not going to be a realignment of Mallard Glen Drive. It has been removed from the project. Is that what I'm reading in the outstanding issues?
Yes, and I would, if CDOT wants to expand on that.
Right, so right now we have Wright Hill Road coming in as a fourth leg there for Mallard Creek, but not for Mallard Glen as part of this project.
Thank you. That resolved my issues on this one. Thank you.
Commissioner Russell.
Yeah, so I just want to follow up on that. So what was the reason that it was removed? The Mallard Glen Drive was removed by CDOT from the project?
I believe that Mallard Glen that you're referring to is a different project altogether, or maybe on the other side of the street.
Correct.
But that wasn't a part of this project here. That our comment referring to Mallard Glen was always aligning Wright Hill Road with Mallard Glen and Mallard Creek Road.
It's not being aligned.
Yeah, it's not being aligned. That's
And
why
it's not being aligned, just making sure we're understanding that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to work on my phrasing of the questions, but.
Yeah,
This is Jake with CDOT. I'll just add to that originally we had requested aligning Wright Hill with that fourth leg with Mallard Glen Drive, but due to what would be required right of way and easements, they couldn't commit to doing that. But there is a conditional note that says that that's where they will start in the process, and if they can acquire easements and get it engineered correctly, that would be our and NCDOT's preference. But as it stands, it's proposed as a right out because they would have to require those easements and property to make that alignment.
Yeah, I'm still confused. So would the easements be required from NCDOT? Who would they be required from?
Good question.
So to align with Mallard Glen Drive, to align this access with Mallard Glen Drive, they would need right of way and property from the adjacent property owner to the south to make that alignment. Their property does not extend far enough to be able to align Wright Hill in that manner.
Okay, so they would need it from their neighbors.
Yeah.
Got it. I do have one more question. I know that this area of Charlotte has some sewer capacity issues, and I think the note says that the closest available sewer main is 425 feet northeast of the rezoning boundary. Are there any concerns about sewer capacity and adding what is essentially 308 units to an already strained sewer system in the area?
The only comments we received was the location of the line. We didn't receive any comments or concerns about capacity, which we usually do if there are capacity issues, but we didn't receive any on this petition, just location.
Thank you.
It's Commissioner Welton. I'm looking at the 2040 policy map again, and I guess I understand that this got to be a neighborhood 1 recommendation because it was some residential version, R3, 4, whatever before. But all around it is neighborhood 2, except for some commercial. And I guess I hope that through this process, we discover more places like this. And I don't know if there's an administrative way to change that before.
Area plan.
Yeah, is area plan the place that's going to get changed?
Yeah, that's likely where we'll reevaluate a lot of those areas that have come up and look to be a little bit out of alignment with what's going on around it. But they'll address a lot of that through the area planning process. But this one, you're correct, was based on the existing zoning and the fact that it was a large, basically like an estate lot.
Okay,
Anything
yeah.
with a zone like R3 or R4 with just one single family house on like an acre or more, it will, I think they remain mainly neighborhood 1. So that's why we've had some small pockets of, a large lot surrounded by N2, but there's an N1 we have one on Elm Lane not long ago that stands out to me, but was part of the methodology for it all. So, but
Yeah.
that will get adjusted in area plan.
Yeah, this week I've spent some time loving on the policy map, and it just was like, oh, anyway, I am not God. Last time I checked. Thank you.
All right, if that's it for discussion, that would be the point in the process we would make a motion.
This is Commissioner Rose. I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-082 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Lansdale second.
Properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Lansdale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 6-0. Moving on to number 11, rezoning petition number 2022-087 by Appaloosa Real Estate Partners. Back to Michael. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. This is approximately 11.65 acres located on the east side of Mallard Creek Road, north of Governor Hunt Road and west of David Taylor Drive. The current zoning is R3, single family residential. The proposed zoning is UR2, urban residential conditional. Next slide. The 2040 policy map calls for neighborhood 1 place type for this site. This particular proposal allows up to 283 multifamily dwelling units. They are providing an 8-foot planting strip and a 12-foot multi-use path along the site's frontage along Mallard Creek Road. They're dedicating 50 feet of right-of-way from the center line of Mallard Creek Road. They're providing access to the southern portion of the site, which will be right in, right out only, and access to the northern portion of the site at Colvard Park Way will be a full movement intersection. They are providing ADA compliant bus stop on Mallard Creek Road. They commit to a 50-foot Class C buffer to abutting single-family properties. They're providing a 5,000 square foot of improved open space with at least 3 of the following elements: pool area, walking paths, landscaping, and seating area. They do provide architectural standards, including building materials, and they're providing walkways to connect all residential entrances to sidewalks along public and private streets. Since the public hearing, the petitioner agrees to contribute $50,000 to the city for transportation and multimodal improvements at the intersection of Mallard Creek Church Road and David Taylor Drive, or other transportation improvements in the Mallard Creek Road area. There are no outstanding issues, and staff does recommend approval of this petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Douglas pointed out, Commissioner Walden pointed out, even on some of our documents, the policy and the policy map, things that we've rezoned in the last 6-12 months, haven't updated the policy map, it looks like still. Like the adjacent property.
Yeah.
Is that? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Something to work on, but I understand when that makes sense now. Questions, comments? Russell?
Yes. Man, I'm having a hard time with this one. Mainly because I understand the rationale, and I think before COVID, this would have made all the sense in the world, because you've got 283 apartments literally next door to a research park and research campus there. You've got all those office towers that are literally right across the street. But considering that we're coming out of COVID and workplace habits have changed, I don't know that this one makes a lot of sense. And I think it's well known that parking is my pet peeve, and all I see is a parking lot with some buildings attached to it. But that's neither here nor there. The other thing that really gives me pause about this one is the number of, is the fact that we don't have crosswalks. And we are literally right across the street from a school on a high occupancy, high speed road. And we don't have any signal improvements. We don't have any way of slowing that traffic down for people to get their kids to school if they have kids that live there. So this one concerns me on a number of levels. And I'm going to have a hard time with that unless one of my esteemed colleagues can convince me otherwise.
Question is, this one has a contribution of $50,000 to what again? Is it just stuff, or is it transportation improvements? Is it infrastructure? Is it tied to something specific? I can't imagine, I could get some paint and make some crosswalks for less than $50,000. Not that I'm saying that's what I'm going to do, but
I might.
I'm just trying to, I wondered, how is that money to be designated?
Hey, this is Jake with CDOT. So we've had a little bit of coordination on that funding and where that would go. There's a current city project up on Mallard Creek Church that's doing multi-use path and sidewalk along there. And there was a sidewalk gap created because of a development that was not moving forward and originally was slated to do that sidewalk. And so one of the discussions was potentially using it to create to fill a sidewalk gap. But we also left the wording so that it could be used for other improvements, you know, along the frontage here or in the Mallard Creek corridor.
that the end of your question?
Yeah, I
Lansdowne.
That my issue here is, again, with staff, when we go from 35 trips a day to 1,300 trips a day, I want to see from staff more aggressive requests for countermeasures when we see these petitions come up like this to have these at least moving towards resolution when it comes to this dais. But I have concerns about the proximity to the school, the parent entry, the lack of the pedestrian crossing, but I appreciate the petitioner's generosity there to contribute to that process. But again, I'm going to rely on kind of staff to start clarifying these active mobility concerns and making sure that when we do say that it is safe and equitable transportation, we have the details to back that up as part of the 2040 comprehensive goals. So without that investment, I don't think we can say that this is safe and equitable mobility, but I'm going to move to, I'll be recommending this project today, so.
Anyone else? Would be time for the motioning if we don't have a question.
I'm trying to formulate one.
Mhm.
And the property adjacent was, I think it was 295 units, and there were, and I realized there were no transportation improvements with that in terms of Mallard Creek Road, or none? Okay. Then, yeah.
This is Commissioner Gaston. I make a motion.
Go right ahead, Commissioner.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-087 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement.
Lansdale second.
Properly moved by Gaston, seconded by Lansdale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are 4-2. That passes. You want to go ahead and clarify anything on the minority report?
Yeah, I have concerns about that area. It's already a very dense area. It already needed crosswalks and proper pedestrians. I used to run in that area weekly. We had people who were hit by cars several times. And so I have concerns adding more traffic to that area in addition to particularly students going to that school. I have concerns about proper crosswalks and the street and traffic lights as well.
Very well. Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to item number 12. Rezoning petition 2022-094 by CCC Uptown Gardens LLC, care of Chaucer Creek Capital LLC. And we are back to Dave.
All right, thank you. This petition is just over 3.5 acres uptown off North Graham Street between 7th and 8th Street and North Smith Street. It's currently zoned UR2 with a historic district overlay. The proposed zoning is for UMUD, also with that historic district overlay in place. The adopted place type on the policy map does call for neighborhood 2. You can see a mix of neighborhood 2, so neighborhood 1, and then, regional activity center in that area. Just to the, I guess, south of this petition site. So this is a conventional petition. Staff does recommend approval. There are no outstanding issues, no site plan. It is inconsistent with the recommendation for neighborhood 2. However, do feel like, given its location in Uptown and the historic district overlay, that the request is appropriate. They would still go through some level of historic district review. And with that, like I said, we'll take any questions, but we are recommending approval of the petition.
we'll go with Lansdale and then Russell.
Just a question for staff. Do we have any more information about the Historic District Commission comments in their meeting regarding this petition?
I don't have those handy. I know that the petitioner is here. They may be able to shed some light on what was discussed. If you want to suspend the rules and ask them about the nature of the conversation, I think that'd be more than appropriate.
Motion to suspend.
Second.
All in favor to suspend the rules and ask specific questions relating to the historic district on this one? Aye, say aye. Opposed? That passes. Terry, I'll let you ask that specific question to the,
So that was an open-ended question. Yeah, do you have any comments in regards to the Historic District Commission meeting where they discussed this petition?
I was not aware that it was discussed by the Historic District Commission.
I think that, I believe that there was talk during the public hearing that there would be some clarification provided. And that was the gist I got. And when you said that, I thought that he knew of a specific meeting. So there's not been a meeting that you're.
Because there are no specific development proposals for this site to take to the Historic District Commission.
And they need to see they need to see a plat, they need to see
Yeah,
pictures, yeah.
specifics. I think the speaker at the hearing was discussing the property catty corner from the site that had been to the Historic District Commission several times and was in review process. But this site, no, there's no reason to go to the Historic District Commission at this point. That's right.
Thank you.
Did you have additional query to the petitioner? All right, returning back, Welton?
Just a question. Nope.
Thank you, Keith. Well, riffing off of that same thing, that I've had some good experience with historic district versus zoning and trying to navigate between the two. And it can be challenging to do it either direction first, and I understand that. The one part that really cautioned me a little bit on this was, and I'm curious if staff has any input as far as, is historic district really limited to 5 stories?
That's a good question, and we don't have a historic district rep here, so I'm not 100% sure how they deal with vertical construction versus, something that would be in like the Plaza Midwood district that you're probably familiar with and so many others, but.
We don't have anything over 3.
Right. But yeah, I would need to follow up with Christie to see exactly what they look at and how far up they do go. I think they do have some limitations on where the review kind of purview stops.
Right.
And that's maybe within that 5 to 6 story range, or the first 5 stories and below, and then recommendations for what happens above. But the main focus is that more of the things that you'll see more at street level.
Pedestrian environment.
Rather than, how you stand there and maybe look up. But that's my general understanding, but I can certainly try to confirm with our historic
See if
district.
you can get us anything on that. We're going to continue to see more intense development in and around our historic districts. And as we've tried to do a lot of buffering in Dilworth area and things like that, we're likely to encounter this quite a few more times. Walton.
I vaguely remember my question now. There's 2 parcels that are to the west of Graham Street. Are those affected by the current Silver Line alignment in terms of how they would go forward with, transition? Or is that something that'll get figured out in the future? Because my understanding is the Silver Line alignment at present would go on those tracks behind Smith Street, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the current alignment goes back really just kind of around this site on the backside, like I said,
Yeah.
Smith Street. I think they may be in the room next to us talking through all that right now. at the MTC meeting. At least I think that's what's going on in there.
That's a party over there.
But that's something that they're discussing, I think, as we speak. But that's where the route is shown, but I know
Okay.
that's part of the conversation.
Yeah, I just, again, with looking at the policy map, again, now that I understand what that translation is, I see that, yeah, these are residential things and they've gotten translated that way. But I also had, in the future, if there's this light rail going through there, what the hell does that mean? I guess is my question.
Yeah, I think it would certainly, once I think that final alignment then is in place, they'll go back through, and I know they've already started some of the potential process for looking at station areas along the Silver Line. I think once the entirety is done, we certainly need to reevaluate any land use recommendations along it. I think a lot of Uptown is regional activity centers, so there's just some pockets like this one that are not.
I understand there's one like okay, that's the intunes around it, I'm understanding that, but Grand Street. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? That would bring us to the point of motioning.
Oh, I'll make a motion about that. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-094 as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Gaston, I second that motion.
Properly moved by Welton, seconded by Gaston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 6-0. All right, moving on to 13, picking up speed. Rezoning petition 2022-095 by AHC Funds. Emma, new face. Well, not a new face, but thank you. Go right ahead.
So we have 2022-095, which is approximately 0.92 acres located on the east side of West 30th Street and north of Tryon Street and west of 31st Street. Current zoning is I2 for general industrial. Proposed zoning is TOD-NC, Transit Oriented Development Neighborhood Center. Some of the parcels surrounding the site are already zoned TOD-NC, and this petition would continue the trend for this area. The 2040 policy map calls for innovation mixed-use place type. This is conventional. Staff does recommend approval for this petition, and the petition is consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Emma. Any questions?
I just have one comment. Wow, Emma, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was what I was going to say. Thanks. Motion.
Lansdale, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend the approval of petition number 2022-095 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement.
Welton, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0. Thanks, Emma. Moving on to number 14, item number 14. Rezoning petition 2022-097 by OMB Property Holdings LLC. Just flying through them now. Max, new face. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mixed up new face with new person talk.
This is my first
Welcome.
petition for this committee. Petition
Max,
20
that's great. Thanks.
Petition 2022-097 is located on the west side of Yancey Road, and it's the site of the Old Mecklenburg Brewery and Beer Garden, and it is approximately 3¼ acres in size. The current zoning is I2 TSO, which is General Industrial Transit Supportive Overlay with optional provisions. The proposed zoning is TOD NC. Several parcels surrounding the site are already zoned TOD NC, and there was a recent rezoning to TOD NC to the south. And this would continue that trend in the area. The 2040 policy map calls for community activity center. The TOD NC district is consistent with the community activity center place type. Staff recommends approval of this petition. This is a conventional rezoning, so there's no associated site plan and therefore no outstanding issues to discuss. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Any questions? I noted that this really was a rezoning that needed to be done a while ago, as we've been watching these all around it that we've been rezoning, but any motions?
Commissioner Wilson. But Commissioner Rhodes, I think you should do this one. Thanks.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-097 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Commissioner Wilson, I'll second that.
Properly motioned by Rhodes, seconded by Welton. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thanks, Max. And moving on to 15. Rezoning petition 2022-100 by Copper Builders LLC. John.
This is a half acre on the south side of Verbena Street, west of Nations Crossing, east of South Tryon. It's currently three lots with some single family homes on them. It's zoned I2 general industrial though, and the proposed zoning is TOD TR transit oriented development transition. There's already TOD zoning in the area. The policy map calls for community activity center place type. Staff recommends approval of the petition. It's conventional. It's consistent with the policy map recommendation for community activity center. Take any questions.
Any questions? Motions?
Commissioner Walton, I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of this petition number 2022-100 as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Gaston, I second that.
Aye.
Rezoning petition 2022-0101 by the Stillway Companies. John.
4.94 acres on the southwest side of 77 Center Drive, east of Interstate 77 and north of Tyvola Road. It's an existing office building and some supporting surface parking lot. The site is currently zoned I2 general industrial. The proposed zoning would be for O2 office. The policy map calls for campus place type. Staff recommends approval of the petition. It's consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for campus. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Thoughts? Y'all know what's next. Thank you. Commissioner Gaston, go right ahead.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by the staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-101 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Lansdale, second.
Properly motioned by Lansdale, properly motioned by Gaston, seconded by Lansdale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 6-0 as well. Moving on to item number 17. Rezoning petition 2022-102 by Petit Philippe LLC. Max, you're up.
Yeah, this petition is on the east side of Park Road at the intersection of Reese Road, adjacent to Park Road Shopping Center. It's just shy of half an acre and is the site of the former Park Road Cleaners. The current zoning is B2 CD, which is a conditional district. The proposed zoning is B1, which is a conventional district. The 2040 policy map calls for the Community Activity Center. B1 zoning is considered inconsistent with this place type, but staff does recommend approval as there are some factors to consider. There are quite a few overlapping uses between the B1 district and what's considered consistent with the Community Activity Center place type. A rezoning would better align the site with the current zoning of many of the surrounding properties. The small size of the site would limit the potential for the development of uses that may be incompatible with the Community Activity Center place type. The old B2 CD site plan had some confusing language about what was to happen with the zoning when the dry cleaners use ceased. And this led to a difficult situation with the recent purchase. And we're just seeking a favorable resolution for all parties. This is a conventional petition, no associated site plan, therefore no outstanding issues. And I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Any questions? Interesting case of how we can make zoning decisions incredibly precise and they look silly later. But now I'm speaking as Grand Philippe, not Petit. Any motions?
This is Commissioner Wells. And you guys worry about me, huh? Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-102 as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Lansdale second.
Properly moved by Welton, seconded by Lansdale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 6-0 also. Moving on to number 18, rezoning petition 2022-103 by Dominion Realty Partners, LLC. We're back to Joe.
Thank you. It's approximately 10.18 acres located north of Perimeter Point Parkway, west of Rebecca Avenue, and south of West Boulevard. Current zoning is mostly I-1 CD in the kind of gray brown color there, and then partially R22 MF in the orange color. Proposed zoning is UR2 CD. The 2040 policy map. That's all right. Recommends campus place type for most of the site and neighborhood 1 for a smaller portion in yellow. Proposal is for up to 270 multifamily dwelling units. Would provide a workforce housing program that would reserve 6% of the units for a minimum of 15 years and maintain monthly rents in line for folks earning 80% or less of the area median income. Limits building height to 65 feet. Provides a 25-foot Class C buffer, including a row of 8-foot Burford hollies planted 12 to 15 feet on center, where adjacent to existing single-family dwellings along Rebecca Avenue, would provide a 25-foot Class C buffer along the rear of the property. Installs an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along the internal public street and along the site's Perimeter Point Parkway frontage. Additionally, commits to extending that Perimeter Point Parkway sidewalk beyond the site's frontage down to West Tyvola Road. Would improve the site's frontage of Rebecca Avenue to a local residential medium street cross section with an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk. Pledges that buildings will front a minimum of 60% of the total street frontage of Perimeter Point Parkway and the new internal public street. All residential ground floor units along Perimeter Point Parkway and the new internal public street will be raised above grade 12 to 24 inches. It provides a minimum of 8,000 square feet of open space that would include at least 3 of the following elements: walking paths, landscaping, seating areas, and structures. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed outstanding issues related to transportation, the environment, and site and building design. Petitioner is also proposing to provide a gate with a fire department Knox box at the Rebecca Avenue access to make that emergency access only. I believe that was in response to some community concerns. Staff does recommend approval and be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. That was my question. Any questions? Russell, Welton, then Russell. And then
Was
Terry.
Terry first?
Sorry.
Oh, I'd like to say thank you to the petitioner for putting in the gate on the back there. I went out to Rebecca Avenue this morning and saw Commissioner Russell actually doing his job. But there is some additional development out there. That was a side building. Yeah, but there is some additional development out there, and I think that this will be good to address the concerns that the opposition speaker had at the public hearing, that, you know, to cut down on traffic, although I don't believe that there'll be a lot of traffic coming out of the back there. It will mitigate it somewhat. So that's my comment.
I got a handful of questions here. So I guess I want to start with the place type. We're talking about campus place type. So I guess what was the rationale for thinking that or for changing from a campus place type to a multifamily place type?
So the campus place type is really kind of intended for a more cohesive, larger development, as opposed to coming back in later to introduce a new use. You could make an argument that it might be consistent with campus place type, but that's the understanding that I have in working with our land use planning staff.
Okay. Yeah, no, and the only reason I'm asking that question because when, you know, of course, I'm thinking campus, like a college campus, that probably is not that much of a stretch for me, but we're thinking an office park campus. That one's a little harder for me to understand. Again, kind of going back to a previous petition that we just had, you know, we're, again, pre-COVID, this makes a world of sense. I don't necessarily know that it makes sense post-COVID. My other question is that we're saying that it is, sorry, my computer has turned off. So this says that the petition could facilitate the 2040 comprehensive plan goals of a 10-minute neighborhood. I'm not sure. Can you expound upon that one a little bit more?
I'm not sure it meets every single one of the goals of meeting a 10-minute neighborhood, but having employment and housing, in particular in close proximity.
So you just,
yeah, it's a subjective when we're determining which goals are met, but we felt like it did enough to meet that goal.
Right. So no, I think that 3, 5, and possibly 8. Those make sense to me. I struggle a little bit with 1 and 3. I'm sorry, 1 and 2 on this one, just due to the location because it's not really close to anything. And I think again, just like we did with River District and with the one in University City, we're just kind of sticking people in a green space because somebody can afford to stick people in a green space, and not having really any transportation options back there. You're just pretty much depending people. You're putting people in cars, and then that gate. I understand the gate, but I don't know. This one is a little tough for me to swallow. I'm not sure I'm in favor of this one as it currently appears before me. Thank you.
Terry?
My sentiments align with Commissioner Russell as well. I just I don't see how this does fulfill safe and equitable mobility or the 10-minute neighborhoods. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with the way it is presented here and the type of use that we're putting in at the back of this facility. Even though we have a potential for growth on the other side in the future, I wish we could have more opportunities to see what the future holds, but we don't have that crystal ball as well. But my question for staff, are there any plans for roadway improvements to connect to the roadways behind? So, I mean, in the future, do you guys know of any plans on the books for CDOT?
This is Patrick. I'm not aware of any current plans. Based on what I'm seeing, it's likely the case that it's one of those we would be waiting for development to come along to acquire the right of way and hopefully extend roads with their project. But we currently don't have any existing right of way or any projects that I'm seeing at the moment.
Yeah, thanks. And that's my concern, just trying to get to the Southview Recreation Area. I mean, if that's 10 minutes to get there, I'm pretty surprised to see that with what you've got to do to get out and get around. I just don't, to get to anywhere, you're 10 minutes just getting out of the neighborhood. So I appreciate that, but thank you for that.
Weldon.
Just to voice a slightly contrary opinion to Commissioner Lansdale and Commissioner Russell, one of the motivations for one of our previous rezonings in this area was the development at, is it City Park? The
City Park where the old Coliseum.
Where the old Coliseum used to be, and that there was growing amount of commercial development in there, and the old retail and rooftops adventure. We saw a justification in putting more residences in this particular area. I would point out that everything, I guess, kind of planned northeastish of this is R22. There is a development that's already going in on Ellen, and it backs up to Rebecca. And I believe that's townhouses. Don't quote me on that, but that's going to add rooftops along with the affordable project that's right across Rebecca there, and the project that I just believe that we're creating customers, so to speak. I want to have faith that City Park is going to develop, and I also want to have faith that West Boulevard Playbook is going to unfold. And, where the Family Dollar is, I believe that there is some, and I'm drawing a blank because it's been a couple of years since I looked at that, but that was an area they were targeting for some additional development there. So that would be, I would want more rooftops out there to help those two projects go forward. So that's my comment.
Any other questions? Concerns? Brings us to the point in the evening where we have to ask for a motion then.
It's Commissioner Rose. I'll make a motion.
Go right ahead.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this position, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-103 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Commissioner Welton, I'll second that.
Properly moved by Rhodes and seconded by Welton. All in favor of approving 2022-103, which I didn't need to say. Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey.
We are 4-2 approved. And the contrasting statement.
Well, you want me?
No, I'll defer to you, Terry.
Sure. So the contracting statement for me is that I don't believe that this particular parcel does represent the 2040 comprehensive plan goals of 10-minute neighborhoods and safe and equitable mobility, and would like to consider other options for design features for this property.
Sufficient? We're good on our front? Excellent. Moving on to number 19. Oops, I flipped past it. Number 19, 2022-111 by Piedmont Natural Gas Company. And we're to Joe. Mr. Magnum.
Thank you. It's approximately 36.27 acres located east of Rhine Road, south of Mount Holly Road, and west of Interstate 485. Current zoning is mostly community center. And then the small portion there in the pink at the bottom right, B2CD, it is within the Lake Wiley protected area. Proposed zoning is I2CD, would carry that Lake Wiley protected area. The 2040 policy map calls for community activity center. Proposal would allow I2 uses, including a 40,000 square foot office building, 25,000 square foot warehouse, 10,000 square foot fabrication shop, 10,000 square foot storage building, 5,000 square foot tech shed, compressor pad, and compressed natural gas filling station. Reserves the right to develop a site in one or more phases. Commits to providing a $50,000 contribution to CDOT for the future installation of a traffic signal at Rhine Road and Mount Holly Road. Commits to improvements along the Rhine Road frontage, including a 41-foot right-of-way dedication from center line, 8-foot planting strip, and 12-foot multi-use path. Limits the total number of driveways to 2, including just 1 full movement and 1 exit only. Limits building height to 49 feet. Provides a 100-foot Class A buffer along the northern property boundary, where recently approved multifamily residential. Also provides a fence and 37.5-foot Class C buffer along the southern property boundary adjacent to commercial use. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed outstanding issues related to land use, transportation, and site and building design. Staff recommends approval. It is inconsistent with that community activity center place type. However, the office portion could be viewed as consistent. The trend for the general area has been more towards industrial and employment-based uses, and that is primary reason for staff's recommendation for approval. Take any questions?
Thank you. Questions?
No, just a comment.
Hit your mic. Oh, you're
That's
on.
all.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this one is interesting because I was surprised to see that there was zero attendance at the community meeting, knowing that the rezoning across the street, 2021-284, was a firestorm. So that one was a little surprising. Well, I guess this is a question. So this petitioner is giving how much? $50,000 to CDOT for a signal at Rhine Road and Mount Holly Huntersville, and that will be combined with the donation from 2021-284 as well. Okay. So we probably can buy a whole traffic signal for free because we got enough connection.
Now they're pretty expensive, so.
We may just get the red light part about.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps.
Okay. No other questions.
Any other questions?
Just a comment.
Go right ahead.
The zero attendance on the community meeting may be because of the limits for, is it 300 feet?
300 feet.
Yeah, there's no one within
Yeah,
notice
that's-
range
that's
almost.
Basically, nobody, I mean, it's wilderness out there.
Yeah.
It is. I'm just surprised that somehow they didn't get a sniff of that.
Yeah, I understand.
All right. Motion.
Commissioner Welton, I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-111 as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Rhodes, second.
Properly moved by Welton, seconded by Rhodes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 6-0. And number 20, rezoning petition 2022-122 by Cohab Development LLC, DBA Spacecraft. Still the fun name to say. Emma, take it away.
So this site is approximately 2.4 acres located on the north side of North Davidson Street and east of East 26th Street and south of North Brevard Street. The site is in an area developed with the mixture of breweries, restaurants, and the LYNX station. The current zoning is TOD-NC. The proposed zoning is TOD-UC. The site is located on North Davidson Street in an area with recent zonings to TOD-UC designations, which will allow for a continuing trend of TOD zoning of this area. The 2040 policy map calls for community activity center place type. This petition is inconsistent with the current place type. However, staff does recommend approval because TOD uses are compatible with the community activity center place type. The site is currently zoned for transit-oriented uses, and the rezoning would align the zoning of the site with the current zoning of many surrounding properties. This is a conventional petition, therefore there is no associated site plan and no outstanding issues. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Emma. Any questions? Welton?
Emma, what's the max height in UC? If they're going to UC as opposed to NC? Is it 120 or 130 or something like that?
I will defer to Dave.
Yeah, it's up to three.
Is this 300 feet
with
UC?
bonus. Yeah,
Bonus.
it's 130 base.
It's 130 and then there's all, you can buy bonus, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
But they're not a quarter, they're half, right?
Right.
okay.
130 base, 300 bonus. Unless, like Max said, you're within that distance.
Yeah.
They're not, so 300 would be the cap.
We didn't hear anything back from the NODA folks about that. I mean, this is not the first one.
No, it's not even technically NODA.
Yeah. Oh God, I didn't say that out loud. They're gonna hunt me down. Okay. I just, I had that curiosity. It was like all of a sudden I thought it. It's like you could put something tall there.
I don't think you're gonna get 300 feet, but 130.
No, there will be a great argument, but anyway.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question, just for me to make sure I understand. I'm still struggling to try to find the detail here, but is there other accommodations for the Cross Charlotte Trail? Or is that just on the perimeter of the property boundaries? Just for my clarification.
There aren't any accommodations built into this rezoning petition just because it's conventional. But if there are requirements in the TOD ordinance to construct a part of that, if they're right along that line, I believe there may be some, but I don't know what the applicability is for the Cross Charlotte Trail and in a by right scenario for development along this TOD parcel, but it's not built into the rezoning document itself just because it's a conventional petition.
Just to make sure I understand it for the record, that could end the Cross Charlotte Trail there, is that correct?
That could end it? Is that the question? And that's not what we communicated, no.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
This is Commissioner Rose, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-122 as it appears before us. and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
This is Gaston, I second.
Properly moved by Rhodes and seconded by Gaston. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Nay.
We have a nay with Lansdale.
Just, I'm going to say that because there's, while by right, we understand, we want to make sure, I'm concerned with the consistency or the protection of the Cross Charlotte Trail associated with the property boundary. Thank you.
I'm just being told the trail's already been installed in this location.
Thank you.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you. Passes 5-1. And 2020, pardon me, item number 21.
We could see.
Thanks for running late. My apologies. That will be 2022-127 by HC Funds. Emma, bring us home.
So this site is approximately 1.88 acres located on the east side of West 32nd Street, north of North Tryon Street, and west of Atando Avenue. The site is an area developed with gas stations, restaurants, and shops, and some breweries south of the site, and a large industrial buildings to the west. The current zoning is I2 General Industrial. The proposed zoning is TOD NC. The site is located on West 30th Street in an area with surrounding parcels that have been recently zoned for TOD.
That's Noted Road right there.
The 2040 policy map calls for manufacturing and logistics place type. This petition is inconsistent with the current place type. However, staff does recommend approval because the site is located on North Tryon Street in an area with recent rezonings to TOD designations. The proposed zoning would allow the site to be developed with transit supportive uses, and the North Tryon Street corridor is well serviced by bus routes to support the use and development associated with this proposal. This is a conventional petition, therefore there is no associated site plan and no outstanding issues. I will take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Motions?
Commissioner Gaston, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2022-127 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Rhodes, second.
Properly moved by Gaston, seconded by Rhodes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very well, that passes 6-0. Do you have any other business, Dave?
No, just to clarify on the last petition, sites that do front trails like the Cross Charlotte Trail, they are required to build their portion of it along their frontage.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm sorry, I didn't visit that site to confirm that. Thank you.
That's all.
We're set?
Yeah.
Anyone wish to motion? To adjourn?
Let's get out of here.
Okay, sounds good. Do we have a second? Yep, all right. Thanks, everyone, for your patience, staff, everyone here. They're all the commissioner. Good night.